Namaskar and welcome back. Today I'd like to share a discourse with you which is full of very practical advice on the three levels: physical, mental, and spiritual. And it has inspired me and is inspiring me. I'm still thinking about it a lot to really focus on why I am here and what is my purpose and what am I trying to achieve. I think we all, well, for some time anyway, I've certainly had that idea, but I think after reading this discourse, I feel the motivation to make it a lot more focused. So let's get into it. The discourse is a small part of a larger discourse called Incantation and Human Progress, from the series called Subhashita Sam'graha, part 24. Every living being has to move. Every animate and inanimate object has to move. As such, human beings also have to move. In this world, living beings are born to do something, to move forward. No thing and no one is stationary. No one can remain static. There is no such thing as absolute speed or absolute pause in this universe. Wherever there is the realm of relativity, there must be speed, and that speed is always relative speed. And because this universe is something created, is a created being, there is continuous flow in this universe, a flow of so many waves, of so many lengths, of so many vibrations, of so many inferences. Human beings are moving and will continue to move. This movement knows no starting point, and in the realm of physicality, and also in the psychic sphere, there is no end point either. There is no cessation or gap in this process of movement. There is no full stop or semicolon, although there may be commas. In the mundane world, people are always moving towards some material goal. If they move without first defining their goals, then their movement will be nothing but a waste of time and energy. There may be movement, but there will be no progress. A bull turning the stone of an oil mill may walk in a circle for 100 miles, but not even a step of that distance will signify real progress. So, in the mundane world, people will have to move towards a particular goal. They must keep their eyes fixed on that goal. Otherwise, their movement will go to waste. Intelligent people do not waste their time, their labor, or anything worthwhile. Intelligent people keep their eyes fixed on the goal as they are moving ahead. Only movement towards a fixed goal, in perfect adjustment with the environment to right and left, is movement worthy of the name. How should one move in the psychic and spiritual realms, on the other hand? There, a person should move with eyes closed to the mundane world, as if it does not exist. When people move in the psychic sphere, they should define a mission in their minds, and they should move towards the fulfillment of that mission. As long as one remains in this world, one will have to maintain progress in the mental sphere. Suppose a student is studying. He will have to remember that he has to pass an examination. If he does not think about passing the examination, if he studies only for the sake of study. He will never pass it. To keep a mission before one's eyes is mandatory. If there is no mission, then psychic endeavor will become meaningless. It will be just a waste of time. As far as human endeavor is concerned, there should be a mission, and one must always remember that mission. If one wants to remember one's mission, one can keep written reminders here and there. This will help to keep it in mind. In the Isha Upanishad, it says, "Offer your actions to Brahma, and, while performing those actions, cherish the desire to live for 100 years. If you do this, you will not get caught in the bondage of actions. There is no other way." Why do you want to live for 100 years? To do more and more work. You want to live long because you hope to do more and more work in this life. Goaded by this desire, you wish to live a long life. So in the psychic sphere, one must always remember that one has a mission in life. And just to materialize that mission, for proper practication of that mission, one is to remain in this world. Otherwise, one must not remain here. One should retire from life as early as possible. Once I said, it is good to die working, but still better to work even while dying. So one should always bear in mind, I am alive in this world for the fulfillment of my mission. This is the reason I am eating, dressing, and sleeping. Apart from this, I have no worth. And if one ever lives a life without a mission, then in that case, no effort in the psychic sphere will bring success. If you do not want to work, if you do not want to serve the world, you will become a burden on the world. It would be better to leave the world than to live as a burden on it. Human life should be enriched with intense activity. Above the mental sphere, there is the spiritual sphere. In the spiritual world, it is not enough to think, as in the psychic sphere, only of one's mission. Because the purpose of a mission is service in the external world. Whatever might be one's specific mission in the objective or expressed world, fundamentally, one's mission is to promote the welfare of the world. But when the movement is internal, that is, when the movement is from mind to spirit, then a mission is of no importance, because you are withdrawing your entire existence towards supreme fulfillment. You may be active in your mission to promote the welfare of the world, but that is not enough. Why do you undertake a mission? Atma mokartam jagat hitayacha, for self-realization and for the welfare of the universe. You certainly undertake it in order to promote the welfare of the world. Along with this, you have to take up another mission, and that is to bring about your own spiritual salvation. If one does not try for one's own salvation, if one does not do spiritual practice, one can never serve society. It will be totally impossible. When you take a vow to work for your mission of self-realization, just remembering that vow will not make it possible for you to win self-realization, though through that vow you can serve the world. So in the spiritual sphere, your progress does not depend only on your mission. The very import, the very meaning or purpose of human existence is, one is to serve the world, and one is to do one's spiritual practice for one's all-round salvation. Here you must remember that salvation does not mean salvation in the spiritual stratum only. Humanity must get salvation in all spheres of life, in all strata of life, without any exception. All humanity wants salvation in the social sphere. They want salvation in economic strata. They want salvation in the realm of intellectual liberty. And they want salvation in the spiritual sphere. These are the minimum wants of human beings. In this sphere of spiritual practice, Atma Mokshartam, for self-realization, the mere thought of one's mission will not suffice. Your work in pursuing your mission will be considered your service. And when your service will be sanctified by Guru Mantra, and that is the mindfulness mantra that we use when doing work. When your service will be sanctified by Guru Mantra, you will spiritually advance. But when it is a question of spiritual salvation, spiritual beatitude, there what you need is Ishta Mantra. And Ishta Mantra is the personal mantra that deals with the question, who am I? Right? So it's a purely internal thing. It has nothing to do with the external world. All right. So let's go back and look at the key advice for the material, for success in the material level, success in the psychic level, and success in the spiritual level. So in the material level, the advice is don't move without first defining your goals. And otherwise your movement will be nothing but a waste of time and energy. Well, that feels fairly obvious and practical advice, but I think a lot of the time we don't take it to heart and actually do that. We don't carefully sit down and define our goals before we spend our time in material work, and that causes us a lot of problems. We have some people like to work but find it difficult to plan, and some people love planning, but not everybody, and it takes a certain mental effort to carefully sit down and think about your goal and make it clear, and always keep that goal in mind when you're working. And I'm sure many of you have experienced, and I certainly have experienced, frustration and wastage of time because of jumping into activities without carefully planning it first. So that one is pretty obvious. So in the mundane world, people will have to move towards a particular goal. They must keep their eyes fixed on that goal, otherwise movement will go to waste. Intelligent people do not waste their time or anything worthwhile. And then it starts to talk about the psychic and the spiritual sphere, and it starts off with something interesting. How should one move in the psychic and spiritual realms, on the other hand? There, a person should move with eyes closed to the mundane world as if it does not exist. So I think this is especially relevant in the sphere of meditation. So, in fact, we begin with that visualization that the world, we imagine the world is no longer there. And that helps us get our focus going on, because our movement is withdrawing our mind from the world and moving towards the source of everything. So we are letting go the external manifestations and dualities, and we are moving away from those towards the underlying source and oneness. So it has to be a movement away from the world. And what is helpful there is to move as if with your eyes closed to the mundane world, as if it doesn't exist. I think that's a very nice point for meditation. Now, it gives an example here of that in the mental sphere, what's important is not a goal, but a mission. And in the it gives the example of a student who is studying. He will have to remember that he has to pass an examination. If he does not think about passing the examination, if he studies only for the sake of study, he will never pass his examination. So here the mission is to pass in the examination. So it's something more comprehensive. Let's say a material goal. A goal is, okay, let's build a shed, all right? There's not a real sense of psychic goal, a psychic mission or psychic purpose about it. It's just a material goal. It's important to be clear about it, but it is just some material goal. Whereas on the psychic level, always work with some kind of higher purpose, some kind of higher mission, such as for a student to pass in the examinations. So, as far as human endeavor is concerned, there should be a mission, and one must always remember that mission. So, if one keeps that mission in mind, there will be this sort of psychic energy and propulsion, keeping you focused, keeping you moving forward, keeping you clear about what you're trying to achieve. And we live in such a complex world. There are so many distractions in all directions. So it's kind of essential to have a mission, a burning purpose, just to, have a feeling of fulfillment and progress in life. Otherwise, we just get pulled in so many directions. So once I said, it is good to die working, but still better to work even while dying. And our Guru certainly gave an example of that. So one should always bear in mind, I am alive in this world for the fulfillment of my mission. This is the reason I am eating, dressing, sleeping. Apart from this, I have no worth. All right? And as an acharya, one goes through up as a teacher, a spiritual teacher, which we call acharya in Anandamarga. It's a hard life being a monk, and I have to, at times I have faced, doubts about whether I want to continue doing this or whether I can do that. But one of the things that helped me decide to continue being a monk is that it has this sense of a mission to it, a purpose to it. And when I contemplated no longer being a monk, I had got so used to living life with a higher purpose, a higher meaning, that the idea, the feeling of not having that anymore, not having that purpose or mission, seemed to be I couldn't accept that, or that was not appealing to me, or I didn't want that. Now, of course, you don't have to be a monk to have a purpose, a mission. And as we will go on to see, it says more about what mission we share together. And if one ever lives a life without a mission, then in that case, no effort, no endeavor in the psychic sphere will bring success. So whatever we do in the mental sphere, of course, we want to have success. And what it's saying here is that if you don't have a mission, right, What is my mission? If that's not clear to you and you're just working without a mission, all your psychic efforts will not be successful. Now that would be sad, right? So it's important, very important, just to have success in the mental sphere, to have a mission and to be clear about it. So, I guess it's going to have this effect for you, but it certainly had an effect to me to, okay, I just need to refresh and think more clearly and narrow my focus and, really get my mission more, kind of pointed. So then it talks about the spiritual sphere. Above the mental sphere, there is the spiritual sphere. In the spiritual world, it is not enough to think only of one's mission, because the purpose of a mission is service in the external world. When movement is internal, that is, when the movement is from mind to spirit, then a mission is of no importance. All right? So I mentioned this a little bit earlier. In the spiritual sphere, the mind is moving towards the source. It's moving away from duality, away from the world, towards the divine, towards the inner stillness, the inner being. And then just mixed in that section there, it explains that whatever might be one's specific mission in the objective or express world, fundamentally, one's mission is to promote the welfare of the world. So here it's just telling us what our mission is, the general mission that every human being has, to be of service, to serve the world, to help the world become a better place. That is our mission in the world. But it says, whatever might be one's specific mission. So by that it means that somebody may serve the world through music, or somebody may serve the world through some other means, through building, or somebody may serve the world through teaching, or through being a parent or something like that. But whatever may be that specific or way that you are doing your mission, you should have that feeling behind it, that my purpose is to serve the world in my particular, specific, or unique way. So in the spiritual sphere, so it kind of diverts and goes a little bit back to the mental sphere, and then it returns to the spiritual sphere. So in the spiritual sphere, your progress does not depend only on your mission. Okay, so the next bit of the discourse relates to the relationship between our spiritual goal, our spiritual purpose, and he does say spiritual mission, like a personal internal mission, as distinct from the world mission. So in Anandamarga, we have this motto for our path, and that is Atma Morkartam Jagat Hitaya Cha. Atma Morkartam means liberation, self-realization. So liberation of the self, and Jagat Hitaya Cha means service to the universe. So that's our motto. That's our dual personal and external mission. The spiritual mission, self-realization; the external mission, service to the world. So here it says that we don't do spiritual practice only to achieve self-realization, although that is our personal mission. We do spiritual practice because we need the qualities that we get from spiritual practice, such as tolerance and patience and love and intuition and broad-mindedness and the ability to act as an instrument of the Tao, the Dharma, the divine. So we need those qualities in order to serve the world. If we don't do spiritual practice, then our work in the world will be colored by selfishness, by narrow-mindedness, by intolerance, and by lack of clarity and confusion. So spiritual practice brings wisdom, and we need that wisdom in order to serve the world properly. And if we try to serve the world properly without wisdom, then the result, as we have seen so much in history, people with good intentions actually do a lot of harm. So it's an interesting point that we need to do, in order to fulfill our mission of serving the world, it's important to do spiritual practice. And then lastly, it says what else is needed apart from a mission in the spiritual sphere. So in this sphere of spiritual progress, the mere thought of one's mission will not be enough. Your work in pursuit of your mission will be considered your service. And when your service will be sanctified by Guru Mantra, you will spiritually advance. In other words, when you do your mission work in the world, and you do it with the mindfulness mantra that we use in Anandamarga, then your work also becomes a meditation and becomes a spiritual activity that helps you in your spiritual progress, right? So you will spiritually advance if you do your work mindfully. But when it is a question of spiritual salvation, spiritual beatitude, meaning achieving enlightenment, self-realization, there what you need is Ishta Mantra. And the discourse ends there. So as I said when I was reading it, Ishta Mantra is the personal mantra that we use that deals with the question, who am I? Right? It doesn't have anything to do with the external world. So there we are. In the material world, never work without first defining your goal. Otherwise, you waste your energy and your time. In the psychic sphere, have a clear mission. And otherwise, again, without a mission, what is my purpose? What am I trying to achieve? Then what is my higher purpose? Then if you don't have that mission, all your mental efforts will also be a waste of time. And then it goes on and says that in the psychic sphere, we all have the same mission, and that is to serve the world. So be clear about that mission, and then how you want to do that service is your unique thing. And then lastly, in the spiritual sphere, what you need, it's not just good enough to have the personal mission of self-realization. You need something more, and that extra thing that you need is this Ishta Mantra that is focusing on who am I? Aham Brahma Asmi. I am the infinite consciousness. That's what the Ishta Mantra works with. Who am I? Expanding that sense of self. And finally, it talks about that relationship, right? So that spiritual wisdom that you get by doing spiritual practice is absolutely necessary to do good work for the welfare of the world. Thank you very much. As I said, I found this very kind of motivating to be more focused and more clear about especially what is my mission. To not be lazy as far as planning is concerned, so that we don't waste our time in other people's times. So I hope you also found that a little bit, motivating to do the same. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great week. Namaskar.